What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Cryptosis. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bionic Swarm, it's scheduled to come out in a few weeks. This album is absolutely brutal. It's relentless. Being that this is the debut Cryptosis album, what was kind of like the idea going into the making of this record? How did Bionic Swarm sort of like see the light of day in terms of what you wanted to do in terms of songwriting?
Well, the album was basically written as a third album of our previous band. But during the songwriting, we thought the sound was changing like a lot from the old stuff that we did as Distillator. That's how we used to call ourselves, and we just wanted to write stuff that has no boundaries. Like no limits in a genre. Not it doesn't fit particularly into one specific genre, and that's really what we wanted. And so we just let go of everything, and we just write the stuff that we wanted to hear in an album. And I think that we've been working on it for about 2 years, and this is basically what came out of it. And we are very happy with the result, and we're very proud of what we've achieved so far already with this album. And it's not even released.
Yeah. Do you feel that with the singles that we've heard so far, such as Death Technology and Transcendence, that this maybe serves as like a good representation of what Bionic Swarm will sound like, or is that just one little taste of it?
I think these are good examples of what you should expect from the album, but there are also some surprises on there. So if you like this kind of music, like the singles we have released so far, then you should really check out the album. But for this album, we just let loose everything that has any connection with a single genre. So we basically did some transcending into different genres, and we mixed it all together on this album. So yeah, it's very it's got loud songs, got soft songs, slow, fast, and everything in between, like more progressive stuff, more like traditional thrash, black metal, symphonic stuff, so I think for many people, it's got something on there that they like and that they might not like so much. But it's a very there's a lot in it.
Was it a preconceived idea to bring all these different elements into Bionic Swarm, or did it just kind of happen that way? Like, was there just like a lot of improvising and experimentation?
No, it's the album is particularly written like this, but over the course of the year, we have been developing, our musical abilities. They grow, but also the music that we like and that we listen to, they changed as well. And so every time that we went on the road with our band, we just showed music to the other band members. Like check this out, I found a really cool album or a really cool artist or whatever. Like, or maybe even a drummer. And then that slowly started to change the course of our music, and at that time we just started writing the album. So I think it just like it was we continued what we already like to hear, and we continued that to write it ourselves. And I think it was a long process. I think personally, it took many years for us to get to this point.
Yeah, and being that you all came from different bands and like were playing, and I mean there's such a long list of, you guys have a very impressive roster for bands like Profligate and like Distiller and all these different bands, like, or Blasphemy Night. Like, do you almost feel that like maybe all the bands that you're involved with maybe influenced what we would hear on Cryptosis, or were you all trying to start fresh and step into territory that you've never really done before?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think there are a lot of bands that influence us, but not only in metal, but also outside of metal. You know, we listen to electronical music, to progressive rock, for example. We listen to like folk music, like Vardruna is one of my personal favorite artists to listen to. You know, it really depends on the mood that I personally am in, and I think this also counts for the rest of the band. But yeah, you know, we listen to a lot of different bands, different genres. We do shows with a lot of different bands, you know, on festivals or in a club show. So yeah, we come in contact with a lot of these bands, and if you check out the Century Media roster, there are also, you know, like punk bands and black metal bands and, you know, power metal bands. You know, it's a whole. There's a lot on there, and yeah, you come into contact with them somehow, and you check them out, and you know, somehow in your subconsciousness there is, you know, it comes out one way or another at some point, you know. So yeah, I think this ultimately resulted in Bionic Swarm, all these, you know, different influences.
Yeah, and you know, signing with Century Media too, because like I love having this conversation because they have such an impressive roster. Like they have, you know, they have bands like Bozzy or Lacuna Coil, like, you know, very like more rock oriented bands. But like then, you know, you look at their latest roster, they're signing Vitriol, Hideous Divinity, like they've signed Aborted. They have Lorna Shore. They have like a lot of relentless bands. Nasty. Like there's just been so many relentless bands, so it almost seems like Cryptosis was the perfect record label for Century Media to work with, right? Or yeah, Cryptosis was the perfect band for Century Media to work with.
yep. Yeah, it's, you know, it's an honor to be on the same roster, you know, with bands that we grew up with, like Mayhem, for example, Arch Enemy, Dark Funeral, you know, like those bands. You know, we when we were just teenagers, we listened to that stuff, you know, and now we are on the same record label, and you know, with the support that they can offer us, it's really amazing for us.
Yeah, definitely. They have again a very relentless roster working for them, like Bewitcher and Frozen Soul, a lot of new bands that are thriving in the underground. So it's
Yeah.
really cool that they need to do like a compilation record of just their most aggressive bands one day and just make the ultimate death metal compilation album.
Yeah, that would be a really good idea.
Yeah. And has there ever been a time, being that the music is so experimental and you know has many different sides, has there ever been a time where maybe lyrics or maybe like a concept could influence the direction of the music itself, or has music always needed to be there for lyrics to sort of come into place?
No, we're writing the music first, and then second comes the lyrics. And you know, we all when we start writing the music, we also, you know, have a document with themes for lyrics, but not necessarily a worked out text, you know. And so whenever we write a song, you know, we already start looking what subject does fit the best, you know, to the vibe of the music, and from there on we just started writing the lyrics. And Lawrence is also when we're doing pre-productions and demos, you know, he's working on you know, like he's with his voice, he just, you know, put some sounds on the music, so you know, everybody hears like, okay, this is going to be the first, you know, this is going to be chorus, this is going to be, you know, whatever groove the vocals will have. But I think we were writing just straight before we go in the studio. We just finish all the lyrics.
Oh, really? Very last minute oriented.
Yeah, it does. It's always been last minute, but you know, we make pre-productions like they sound pretty good actually. You know, we use drum computers. We have our own studios at home where we can, you know, make the demos and make all the pre-productions. And what I do for vocals is mainly that I use some kind of phonetically vocal recording that, you know, then I can change, you know, through the process, you know, like that I have the certain groove, you know, like that everybody knows, like, okay, this is going to be more or less the groove of the vocals on the music. and this gives an idea to everyone in the band what it's going to sound like, more or less, without even being a lyric there yet. But yeah, it works pretty good, and it works also really good, to have like a kind of like a template to build the actual lyrics upon.
And do you like to leave? Do you consider Cryptosis music to be open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe engage the listener into the lyricism as much as the music itself?
No, I think lyrics are pretty open to interpretation because we have been writing this album and recording the album before the pandemic started. And, a lot of interviews, people ask us and say, hey, this is album about COVID-19 and things that are happening now in the world. But for us, like we didn't know what COVID-19 was when we wrote the album, so I think it has a lot of touch points, for everybody to make up their own story about it.
And which is interesting. There's a lot of albums that almost seem like they predicted the time that we're living in. Like, look at Heaven Shall Burn's album. It came out like right before the lockdown occurred, and then you listen to it. It's all about the pandemic. It's all about the unrest. It's all about, like, it seems like a lot of, I've always said death metal has been way ahead of its time in more ways than one in this day and age.
Yeah, it's so weird,
Yeah. And
yeah, but our lyrics are mainly about the future, sci-fi stuff. And for Bionic Swarm, they are, I can tell you something about the concept. It's it takes place in the year 2149. It's not actually a year that we think this is going to happen, but it's basically sounded good, and it's not too far in the future. So we wrote like 8 stories from 8 different perspectives, telling something about a certain technology or a certain, advancement in technology. And just, highlighting both sides, the good and bad sides of technology. And people can make up their own mind about it. Mm-hmm. That was basically, the concept behind everything. And we have always been a fan of concept albums. We wrote concept albums in the past. We think it's a great way to make an album, make it one big thing as a whole.
Yeah.
So it has a little bit more body, a little bit more a load to it.
Was Fear Factory ever an inspiration for you? Because Fear Factory always had like artificial intelligence, like when you listen to Demanufacture or Obsolete or The Industrialist. I mean, like those are very, very concept-driven albums and all really relating to modern technology. Has Fear Factory ever been an influence for you?
For me personally, no, but maybe for the rest of the band, I'm not sure. But I've I know some Fear Factory songs, but I never really got into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so so like, were you kind of like, being that this does have sort of like a underlying theme behind it, you recommend for the listener to start off with Overture 2149 and end with Flux Divergence, right? Like this album is kind of meant to be listened to chronologically, not like shuffle on shuffle.
Yes.
Yeah. It's meant as it's like basically it's based on the idea of an LP, a vinyl, to start with Overture 2149 and end with Transcendence, and then at the other half, you flip the record and you start the other side with Perpetual Motion, and you end with Flux Divergence. Mm-hmm. So it's basically thought up like that, like these musical intermezzo's in between. They also, contribute to the whole concept thing. They take the listener back, to focus more on the concept as these points. And for us, it was a really good way, to like make the album one thing, like one concept.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, and you mentioned it before, like, music always comes first, but like personal experiences, is there ever like for writing the music or even the lyrics, does your personal experiences also influence your songwriting process as well? Or like, do you like to explore subject matters or music that are maybe an escape from your realities?
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question, you know. I think, you know, whenever you make music or you know, like you make art or you write text, you know, it's always an escape from the reality that you're living in. So yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, because with this album we just create a whole new world, you know, that you can only exist in your imagination, because it has not happened yet. So I think, yeah, it's definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you know, like experience some personal stuff, you know, like bad stuff or whatever, I think this also comes out in one way or another. You know, maybe it's in music, maybe it's in art. But you know, it's hard to say that you know, that these songs are like caused by something that we experienced in the past or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, it's more like an you know, it's just like more like fantasy, you know, like our imagination, you know, what happens there, and we just try to put it into words.
Mm-hmm. You ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview? I want you both to answer this because this is always my favorite question to ask everybody. All right.
All right.
How do you know when a song is done?
You don't.
Well, that was a short one. All right, Lawrence, it's all on you now.
Yeah. I think I agree with Frank, but you know, I think also during this record, you know, I will take it as example again. If we have taken like 2 years to write this album, and we have listened to these songs like in the demoing process, in the songwriting process, in the mixing, mastering, recording process. You know, like I think it's. I wouldn't be surprised it was like 1,000 times. You know, and even then, some songs, you know, you think of some songs like, okay, you know, I wouldn't change anything even after 1,000 plays. You know, and sometimes you think, okay, maybe we have you know, did a better job if we changed that a little bit or that a little bit. But I think this is normal, you know. I think if you ask any musician, they have always some kind of remark on their own work, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard to say, you know. At some point you have to say, okay, this song is done, and you're going to record it, of course. But you know, we don't want to rush anything.
Yeah.
We just want to, you know, deliver top quality always. You know, because I think that this will you know, deliver something sooner or later. You know, instead of, you know, rushing and make an album each year because you just want to sell or you just want to do a tour or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, like when you're writing a song, you know, like if the idea that you start with, you know, for example, you got a song that you want to be very technical, or you want a song that is, you know, that's very catchy. So let's say a song, you know, that you want to write is very catchy. Then if you have a good verse, a good chorus, and a good bridge, you know, then you're probably already for 90% there. So then you know, it's easy, you know, if you have a good feeling about it. But no, we got a song, Game of Souls, that has been, you know, there are a lot of different accents and parts and changes. And, you know, that kind of songs usually take the longest to write because there's so much going on, you know, and you have an idea with the song, but, you know, like every time that you work on it, you know, the song becomes cooler, better, you know, like it feels, you know, it feels good to make changes and make more changes and make more changes to it. So it's a really difficult question, I think, to answer. Yeah.
That's why I love asking it. And I have two more questions for you, but being that you mentioned you were working on this material for a long period of time, did this material, is what we're hearing on the final product of Bionic Swarm, is this how these songs were originally composed and originally structured, or do you think that these songs like changed a lot over a span of time?
Yeah, I think it changed a lot during the songwriting process. You know, I think we have some parts from Transcendence that were first used in Decipher, and we had riffs that we didn't use up until the final moment. You know, and we also before we started recording the drums, you know, we always start with drums. We locked ourselves up in like a cabin in the woods. We rented this place, just the three guys of us. We went there for 10 days. We rehearsed the album, you know, like put all the dots on the i's, and you know, just rehearsed our asses off to get as well prepared as possible for the recording in the studio. And even then, we, you know, the whole bridge of Decipher, we had a totally different bridge there that we, you know, just throw aside and wrote a new one because it was way better than what we got. So at the end, we changed a lot of things, and also during the process. And you know, some songs, they have like 45 or 50 different versions, you know, like each version, like a small tweak there, a small tweak there, you know, like a new riff, and the next version, the riff is gone, and there's a new riff there, and you know, and some songs only have 10 versions.
You're worried that the old version of each song, the old version that you edited, will be a B-side and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
No, I don't think so.
No.
We saved all this stuff, you know, on a hard disk somewhere. I think I've got most of these saved on a hard disk. So it's, you know, it's fun to play play through these versions and see how the whole song changed over time.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is, being that you are a band from the Netherlands, you know, I've interviewed a small handful of bands from Holland where, like, you know, there's a great, like, I've noticed there's a great, like, symphonic metal scene there with, like, Epica and Within Temptation and a lot of those bands, but it seems like there's been a lot of great underground bands that have been rising out of there as well. How is the current scene right now in the Netherlands in terms of like death metal and, you know, this hardcore energy that you have? Is there kind of like an underground scene, or has the goal always been to, you know, go outside your borders and, you know, play to Germany and France and, like, you know, spread the name out there?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because you know, whenever we looking at our statistics, and you know, for Spotify, Facebook, whatever, you know, we see that we got a lot of fans in the United States and Germany, Sweden, you know, all different kinds of countries, but not so much in the Netherlands. But you know, for us, when we started this band 7 years ago, I think after a few months, we already, you know, went to Finland to do some shows. We played a lot of concerts in Germany, in Belgium. So for us, it was always, you know, we were always like on the road to different countries. And I think we played about 25 countries. So, you know, in the Netherlands, we have like a scene that's really into old school death metal, you know, like stuff like Asphyx, Gorefest, you know, that kind of music. And there, you know, like what you say, there's some symphonic music there, but also, you know, a little bit of the metalcore stuff. But you know, that's it. And you know, there's not really a big metal scene anymore, I think, you know, if you compare it to maybe 20 years ago. And so at least you know, for me, I don't really consider ourselves like a typical Dutch band or so, you know, because we always have been to different places, and we're not so much bound to our hometown, or, you know, to this area, or, you know, Netherlands, because it's such a small country, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, it's most bands I notice like and what's interesting, I was having a discussion with Maurizio of Cataclysm one time about this, and he says like it's good when there's a big scene like in a country like Sweden, but a lot of times when you're playing in Sweden, you're playing to other band members or you're playing to other bands in general. Like I think what the and really when there's a huge metal scene, there is sort of like, you know, you don't want it to be oversaturated. You don't want it to be dead, but you also, there is a problem with it being too much as well. Like in New York City, where there's a huge scene, like you'll have like 20 underground shows happening the same night as like there's 5 big shows that are touring through here. So like it is kind of like yeah, I think maybe you could be the death metal band of the Netherlands, you and Asphyx.
Yeah, and you know, Pestilence is from our hometown too, but you know that's already 30 years ago. So you know, it's time for new bands and the new generation. You know, and I think what we're doing is like we combine the symphonic stuff, like you mentioned, with Incantation, Epica, and we combine it with the aggressive stuff like Pestilence, and we make it in some kind of new, you know, sound that I think what we're doing right now hasn't been done much in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
So for I think for that,
it's usually happening in
Yeah, I
Italy
think
or the U.S. Oh,
You know,
Yeah.
I think it doesn't. You know what we are doing right now. I think on Bionic Swarm, I think, I think there aren't many bands that you know make this kind of music. You know, we are always people always try to compare it to other bands. Like you're a mix of this band and this band and this band, or you got inspired by this band a lot. Is this true? But you know, we try to get our own footprint. You know, and it will grow in the future. I think for the next album we will, you know, experiment even more. I think, and try different stuff, and you know, like try to be more creative. You know, and yeah, just to get our own sound out there. It's I think it's really important to do that.
yeah, maybe some gentle ballads on the next album.
yeah, who knows?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but you know, nobody can predict the future.
Yeah. To quote Jim Carrey about Napalm Death, maybe one day this guy will slow down and do some duets. So
Yeah,
get Celine
Yeah,
Dion.
don't expect it, but you know, we don't rule it out.
I guarantee if you get Celine Dion or Mariah Carey or Christina Aguilera to collaborate with you, you will be the death metal band that nobody forgets.
yeah.
Let's make sure that we arrange this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll make a few calls.
Yeah. You know what to find us.
Yeah. I'll give Mariah Carey a call. Be like, hey, I know you're super busy right now, but any chance you could collaborate on our death metal demo? So, you never know. You never know. A lot of
Yeah.
pop stars nowadays are metalheads, so I can definitely see that being the future. I also see, you know how like with every historical moment in history, there is always a style of music associated with it. Like everybody associates like, you know, the 60s with like the trippy rock and roll, the 1940s with like the swing music. I think when we look back in history, like decades from now on this pandemic, death metal is going to be the style of music that demonstrates this historical time period.
Yeah, who knows? You know, it could be quite possible.
Yeah, you know, the way that they showed like, the Frank Sinatra or these artists back at this time period. Well, this is Cryptosis, and this is album that really represents the pandemic in which we go through. I see that being taught in history classes.
Yeah, but you know, we didn't write it during the pandemic. You know, it's like not based on it at all. But we just don't tell this kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it will be, you know, our success moment.
Well, people are now discovering death metal like it's a new thing. Like they discover like Butchered at Birth by Cannibal Corpse, and they're looking at it like, oh, did this just come out in 2020? So, but
Yeah.
so before we go, I want to thank you all so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with Cryptosis that you would like to promote? Maybe like a live stream performance to hold the fans over, or anything else that you would like to plug in terms of merch? And obviously, when this stupid virus that shall not be named goes away, we'll be seeing you on the road quite a bit, right?
You want to say it, Frank?
We're having a live stream concert on April 24. You can watch it. It's for free. We're going to play the whole album from front to back. We're going to present it in a really cool interactive live experience with some futuristic elements as well. March 26th, end of this month, we're going to release the album on Century Media Records. It's available in LP, CD, and cassette tapes, and t-shirts, and what else?
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of other stuff, you can buy to support the band. We got our own web shop. You can, visit if you want to support us directly. We got a lot of different merch items there. And yeah, we hope to get on the road pretty soon. Hopefully we can do this. We have planned a tour with Factor in May and June. We hope it can happen. If it's going to be cancelled, it's not going to be cancelled, but it's going to be postponed to some other point. So, but we will definitely tour with Factor in the future, for sure. And we got already some plans. Some shows booked for next year. Pretty exciting stuff there too happening. It's not announced yet, but there's some pretty cool stuff in the pipeline. And just keep an eye on our socials to be updated about that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much, everybody. We are here with Cryptosis, Bionic Swarm, coming out at the end of the month for 2021. Be sure to check it out. It is absolutely relentless. It is brutal. You do not want to miss it. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.